Alright, welcome to our feature interview for this week, and it's James Cummings. James, welcome.
Thanks guys, thanks for stopping by.
That's a pleasure, and look, we just happen to be positioned in front of quite a bit of silverware and some gold and some nice scotch.
The scotch.
Yeah, I promise you they're recent trophies.
Well done.
Actually, you know what they are, so I'm not going to take a bit of credit away. The stable's been working hard.
Yeah,
Oh, beautiful. Good. And win of the day, maiden.
Yeah, we had a Bellisbury filly on debut for Goree. Been training the filly at the farm, so only been at Randwick for about a month.
Yeah.
And she's half sister to Ruling Dynasty, who just managed to keep, after a very big offer to the owners to be taken to Hong Kong for a potential Hong Kong derby. So good to keep a promising horse like him in the stable, because if you keep losing those up and coming horses, you know you'll be left with nothing. So.
You just mentioned the farm. Like, tell the punters at home how you guys work out what's here at Randwick and what's at the farm.
Yeah. So look, we have a pre-training and full training establishment at Goree, and they breed probably, they've got nearly 70 mares. Okay. They probably only try and race about 40 or 35 of them, you know, out of that their foal crop. And I'm sort of estimating with figures here because it does change every year, and it could even change again. But you can imagine the costs involved in having so many and having them with city trainers. And one of the things they've been really good at over the years is finding a top line horse from any stallion or from any bloodline. And even though they have excellent bloodlines, they're always generating new ones. So one of the things I attribute that to, apart from the fact they have a really top farm to grow horses at, they've got really good firm ground, big paddocks, paddocks in hills where horses can really develop and mature, unlike, you know, that image you could get of like a chicken farm where horses are really bundled into a small space, flat ground. You know, sometimes it's swampland, and they just do their best, grain fed their whole lives, and that they don't really develop the bone structures and the necessary muscle and conditioning that they should as natural horses should. Yep. So that would be the first thing they do really well. But the second thing they've always really done very well is not saved any costs on horses. Okay. Even if they're bred by unfashionable stallions or from poor bloodlines, and that has enabled them to get horses like. They had a horse that was named after a priest that Friedman trained. Okay. That was by like a 2-bob stallion, and they won a Group 1 in Brisbane with the horse. He ended up being a middle distance weight for age star, you know, and part of that's attributed to the fact that they still send the horse to Friedman and they didn't want to cut on the costs. Yeah. What they're trying to do now is they're trying to focus that quality and keep it at the farm so that they can create a system that is you know, economically viable, and it seems to be working so far. You know, we've had some first up winners from trained off the farm, like Who's Gorgeous won on debut as a 2-year-old. We had the 3-year-old filly Think Aloud won at Wyong first up. Right. She didn't beat much of a field, but she wouldn't have gone any better had she been at Randwick 12 weeks, and that's what it takes to get a horse fit here, you know. And that horse in a similar vein. So hopefully that horse, Ocean Tempest, being a young filly, can progress and get to a good race this season as a spring 3-year-old. But you know, we know that's a big jump to take, but she's capable of it, and her win was impressive, and she wasn't comfortable on a heavy 10. Yeah. Not many horses can debut on a heavy 10 and get away with it.
Yeah. That's one thing I noticed. I seem to land on the Goree horses a lot because I do like types, and I always find they are really big, strong, athletic types. But in saying that, a lot of those big, strong, athletic types don't seem like wet tracks either.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I believe that Goree do try to breed to a type of horse. You know, my grandfather and Duncan Ramage, who was a bloodstock agent for many years, have bought a certain type of horse that's been even bigger than that. They've always tried to buy that Adonis, the So You Think and the Saintly, and that's the horse they're going for. But when you get it wrong, you get it really wrong, because the horse is a boat, and they're just legless on wet tracks. You know, you think of a horse like Kuta Kalari, you know, and in his prime, he's racing 600 kilos. Yeah. But you run him at Randwick on a wet track, he can't pick his feet up. You know, it's hopeless. But and of course that's not everything. You know, a lot of it's got to do with the mechanics of their stride and the fact that Rafael Nadal's better on clay and Roger Federer's better on grass. You know, so you've got to keep that in mind. But I think the Goree horses, they do try and breed to a type, and they do tend to get like a very athletic, very sort of middle of the road racier, sprinter type horse because they breed to fast families, fast stallions.
So on type, when you're looking at your guru horses, some of the horses you train for obviously private owners, do you train them different?
Yeah, we do. Like we try to train them all very differently and keep it simple at the same time. You know, so that you try and have your 8 to 10 exercise routines and keep it as consistent as you can to achieve consistency on the track as they progress. Sometimes up in distance, sometimes remaining the same, but we try to train everything individually and feed everything individually. But certainly, I'm not training a filly like Tempt Me Not the same way I'm training a ruling dynasty. You know, so there's from the same farm, but two inherently very different horses that need to be prepared differently, I would imagine, and that's what we're confident is the right thing to do.
Okay. Well, let's talk about obviously Bart has sort of stepped away slowly from the stable here at Randwick. When has that transition? How long has that transition been happening for? And are you sort of comfortable with where it's at? I suppose it's been how long has it been?
Yeah, so we've been training since 1st August 2013.
Yeah.
As a partnership.
Yeah. So
that's where Bart sort of really took a step away. I sat down and applied for my license with Greg Rudolph, and licensing in Racing New South Wales. So they were good enough to grant me a license, even though I might not have been, as wise in years as I could have been. But what I've been able to earn and privileged to earn is years of being at the forefront of a stable with 60 horses in work that had great bloodstock coming through. Being at the coalface, doing trot ups every morning, clocking horses with my grandfather or without him even over my shoulder. Sitting in his very office that's been a little bit revamped since he was at the helm.
Behind
the Venetian blinds, I've since gotten rid of the Venetian blinds, opened it up a bit. The thing I sometimes have taken for granted, that since I can look back and I can appreciate what privilege I was in, is that I sit here every afternoon and we do the track work for the next morning together. And it didn't matter whether we're trying to prepare, a breeze up who ended up being a Class 2 horse, or we had Dariana coming through the stables who's beating the boys in a Frank Packer plate en route to winning a Queensland Derby, or whether we had So You Think that jumped from the 1400 Ming Dynasty first up to the Gloaming 2 weeks later 1800 and just killed them. A really good horse. Having that ability to watch that horse progress, be in here, decide what we're feeding him, decide the way we're working him, go through the ins and outs of jockeys and why we use certain jockeys or why we decide to change, and that's something that you can't get grafting.
No.
And as much as I respect the people that have come through in that way, that's a different way. That's a different thing that you learn. Like you couldn't bottle what I've been able to learn in that time and give it away. You couldn't sell it because I was put in a position even with Bart when he was not here and his health was deteriorating, that if he didn't ring me up and get me to do exactly what he wanted or tell me exactly what he knew I needed to know, then it was going to be to the detriment of all of us. And at the time we had pretty serious animals in the stable. Like in that time we've gone through Latin News, Rock Classic, Dariana, So You Think. We've had Roman Emperor, LA Wonder, Norzita. So the list is pretty bit of a who's who of who we've had in the last 10 years at Leilani Lodge. So I've been really lucky in that way. But from about Norzita's 3-year-old season, 2 and 3-year-old season, Bart was probably not able to get to the track as much as any other trainer that had 60 horses in work. And that's not to say he wasn't still doing a great job. I still firmly believe that there's a lot to be said for an ivory tower trainer. There's a lot of ivory tower trainers in the country that do a lot better than the hands-on trainers. And they have the ability to step back and to think things through without getting emotional and without falling in love with their horses.
Right.
And I think that's a critical element in some ways to keep in mind. And it's also a good way to remain confident about what you're doing and to not lose confidence because for whatever reason you might be influenced on any given day. So there are a couple of things that I've noticed over the years, and that's probably the way.
It's that falling in love comment you just made. Like you don't hear other trainers admit that, but as a lot of punters sort of would see them on TV thinking that every horse is a superstar and stuff. It seems like you've got a great, of course you've seen the good ones, you also know where the next level is, but you're also respecting that and placing it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really easy trap to fall into, and I think that can really handicap you.
Yeah.
And I was even like a lot of this stuff dawns on me, after the fact in many ways. And John Peatfield, who does a lot of vet work with some of our clients, he came through and he's always looking at the gory horses, and every so often we trot all the gory horses up like we did this morning, and we go through them. And his comment to me about Hello Crown was to congratulate me, because most young trainers, when they get a horse that good, they'll go soft on the horse, and he won't perform.
Yep.
And you know what? It wouldn't have been something I thought about, but when I reflected back on it, every time that horse stepped out for a gallop, there's a risk of breakdown. Every time we run that horse, there's a risk of injury. Everything we do with that horse, and this is a seriously, the horse is worth more than $10 million. And if you have that in mind, it's staggering.
Yeah, it's very staggering.
You'd never drive your car if you had a $10 million car,
that's
would
right.
you?
You would never let it out of your sight. You'd have the baby monitor on its box every night, and you just would drive yourself mad doing it. So that's something that confidence that Bart had about his horses, big or small, fast or slow, that confidence that he had is one of the things that definitely has to be setting him apart from trainers that he's competed against for the last 60 years.
That was one thing I did notice about the horse when it came back for its last prep, and it didn't start favourite a few times, but he was wound up from day dot. Like you did have him forward, he was probably more forward than a lot of the horses, but he also held his condition, he never tapered off either.
Yeah. Well, we went and saw him at the farm on the weekend. The stallion parades were over the weekend, so we got the opportunity to see some good horses that have come through the stable, like Eurozone, he's at Newgate Farm.
Okay.
Hello Crown is at Darley now, and so you think at Cornwall, like that's pretty lucky that we're in that position where we can go to the Hunt of Hay, and there's 3 really good colts that are serving mares every season, and he's put on like 70 kilos now that he's become 4. He's turned 4, and he's let down, and they've got him on a different diet. And he's out there. He's in the next paddock is shooting to win. They're probably reflecting on some of their battles over the years, But it's a different thing when they're letting down on a stud farm than when they're in work. And I know myself the difference it makes when a horse does turn 4 from that 3-year-old season. They do bulk up a lot more.
Right up.
So there's probably runs and races that got away from us there with him, but at the same time, from an economic viewpoint, how can you argue with money in the bank from service fees that roll in his first season using this year? And he's done his job. He's won his 2 Group 1s. He's nearly at the head of the peloton of the 3-year-old crop. So it's interesting, and I agree with what you say. Like we made a conscious effort to try and make sure that he maintained as that fitness and be as fit as he could be for those first up runs.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the heights, you'd say, from your early career of being more in charge of the whole situation yourself. Yeah. How did you deal with the first loss of a horse like Norzita?
Very badly. I found that really hard to cope with. I was at Wyong, and the horse we announced the day before it was just about the day we'd announced it. I was at Wyong. It would have been the following, a few days later. And Kevin Moses is standing there with John O'Shea, and he says to me, "You lost your good horse." And he said something like, I'll paraphrase him a little bit, but he said, "Mate, that's the game. There's more downs than there are ups in the game, and that's just what you're going to have to live with." And it's a good game, and it's been really good to the family, and you can't beat yourself up over it, and you can't get too down on those moments. But she had like a Group 1 in the bag. 2 starts later, she'd have been winning at George May. Yeah. She'd have, put it this way, she'd have been starting very, very, very short in the market. On the back of her return,
she's a very promising horse.
On the back of her return, she'd run so well at Warwick Farm. And I think to myself, what if we just sat out that carnival and just waited for the autumn the following year? She'd done a good job. What if we did this? What if we did that? At the end of the day, she was having a very light piece of exercise on the Thursday before the 1400 second up. Yeah. She was ready to go. Bowman booked. Bowman said to me after she ran first up at Warwick Farm that day, it was very firm, the track. But he said to me, James, I've never been so excited about a horse running third in my career. That's how good she went to run third.
So that helped.
That's what's the dangling carrot for me as a first season trainer, and you got to deal with it, And thank God for us, we had Eurozone in the pipeline. We had Shamalia in the stable. We had precedents about to win a Moonee Valley Cup. That makes it a little bit easier to take, and you've got to focus on the job at hand.
Yeah. Just on, so we'll go back to training. Like you said, you can be not hard on the horse, but you didn't go too soft. One thing that I think the stigma with Bart was he always used to let his horses race fit. It was like a stigma of the stable, where now we're seeing you are winning with a lot, like first up with a lot of these horses. Is that something that you've talked about and changed? Or is that just the stable evolving to try and keep up with the way racing's going, or? Yeah,
in some respects, yes. But in all the time I've been here working with Bart, I can remember he would tell me to work a horse hard, and I would say to him, I would be the one holding back.
Yeah.
And I would say to him, Bart, are you sure you want to do that with that horse? And he would say, what are you talking about? It's running next week. And I would say, I would use this line, Bart, it's only first up. It's only 1400 first up, there's races ahead of it. And he said, so what? He said, we're going to win first up, and we're going to win everything else. and he said, what are you talking about, you idiot? And I'd say, well, hang on, you're Bart. Everyone knows you just race them into fitness. And he said, bullshit. He slams the paper on the desk, and he says, we're going to have it fit. So Kuta Kalari, a week out from the Canberra Guineas, he's having me working the horse over 1400 metres on the track here, and I'm thinking, what are we doing this for? Anyway, the horse wins first up 1400 metres because he might have allowed the myth maybe to grow. He might have through people that worked for him maybe in the past, or people that were doing the hands-on work when he wasn't quite there all the time, maybe help propagate the myth.
Yeah.
But it's not what he truly believed. It's not what he wanted out of his horses. He wanted his horses with that half-inch less fat on them. He wanted his horses to be fit when they got to the races first up. But they're just some of the things I've experienced with him over the years that might have just caught me by surprise, because I expected that what everyone told me was the truth. And even I was approaching it in that respect.
Right.
And I was his foreman, so if the stable didn't train a winner all season, after John Thompson had just been saddling up winners for him, well, how does that make me look? No one's going to be blaming Bart, so the pressure's on me as a foreman.
Yeah, okay.
And not many other foremen in my position would have had, not many other foremen in any stable would have that sort of pressure. Yeah. I mean, everyone wants their horses to go terrific, don't get me wrong, but I just wonder whether that would put me in a different, under a different spotlight than I would be if I was the foreman for Peter Snowden. No one's going to be blaming me.
It's a different.
It'd be on Peter. Like, no one blames Gay. It's on Gay. Anyone other than Gay, it's on Gay. So, I learned that fairly early on with him, and now that I am there all the time, maybe that's what he's taught me is filtering through. So I would still have to pay my respects to him and say that's what he actually trained me to do, but we're just probably doing that better than ever now that we're working together.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've met up with a couple of stables. We've talked about horse racing, the business. The Gay Waterhouse, their philosophy, they've said they're a bit of a shoot for the stars. Like, you get a horse with Gay, like, we're throwing everything in them for the $40 million sale. That's it. Waller had that perception of just lots of racing, lots of fitness. They dominate those races, so they seem to be a business that is successful on prize money. What we see, obviously, the Guri connection, the Dardo connection as well. Where is James Cummings racing? Where's it going?
What's the ethos?
What's the goals for the season?
Are you always looking for owners, or are you happy with what you've got, with the connections?
First and foremost, our gate's always open, and we're always really looking for new clients. And I think I really love having a new set of colours go around for the stable. I actually take pride in it. If Duncan comes out and watches track work on Tuesday morning with me, and he's seeing his horses like Glitcher that raced today go past, and he's looking at his his horse Precedence trot past. And then he says to me, well, what's that horse there? And I say, well, that horse is Dennis Lowe's horse. And he'd say, well, who's Dennis? I say, oh, Dennis is a guy I met in Melbourne. he's a client from Asia, and he wanted to have a horse with us, you know.
Yeah.
And I take pride in that because to me that's saying that people are taking notice of what we're doing and they want to be a part of the culture here. And I'd like to think that we've got a really positive culture. We've got a lot of young staff. That's a good mixture of experience and youth and enthusiasm. And we have won stakes races from 1,100 metres to 2,500 metres, in 2 years. So we're really trying to diversify our talents and our horse pool talent.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I think probably Bjorn would say a similar thing, that owners come into the game for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to be prepared to cater to those reasons. And I think one of the good things about a young trainer is that if you want to have a horse with me and you tell me that you want to be the one to pick the jockey, that's fine. And it doesn't worry me too much.
Okay.
I can give you my advice, but I would enjoy seeing you being involved in the decision.
Okay.
Just in the same way you would be a part of a club somewhere and you become involved in the culture there. So I think there's a lot to be said for being involved. I think there's a lot to be said for ringing up and saying, look, I this horse got trapped deep outside the leader last start. I know it's going to be hard to do, but we want to ride the horse all the way back to last. Are you happy with that? We talk it through before the race.
Yeah.
So there's that element of you can look bad, you can have egg on your face, but at least there's that interaction. And there's a culture there that's really important.
Was that something Bart would have done?
Well, look, Bart grew up in a really different.
Yeah.
You got to we can't forget that Bart grew up in a completely different time. Bart grew up when there weren't, there wasn't the sort of access to sectionals. You didn't have interviews with trainers every week at the track, or jockeys. And I just wonder whether Bart was in a position where he would get himself into more trouble doing that than good.
Yeah.
And so people like Bart and TJ and Colin, they all did that. They all were much more introverted in the way they ran their business, and their owners would know their horses racing because they picked up the form guide.
Yep.
And they would know how their horse looked when they saw it at the races.
Yeah.
So
it's
a different era, big time. And like even something as simple to us as a filmed barrier trial.
Yeah.
Like how many years has that actually been happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Something to us like you can click on a link now and watch
blow
a
up
replay.
if it's not up
You
in
can
the
watch a
afternoon.
replay of a Gosford race, but you can also watch a replay of the horse's 2 barrier trials at Hawkesbury, and we're blowing up if it's not up there.
Yeah.
Or if they've put the wrong video there.
Yeah.
Years ago, if you didn't send someone to go and film the trials,
you wouldn't have seen
you wouldn't have known it. So you would imagine 12 horses turned up at Canterbury. Well, this one, TJ trains, it's by Redute's choice, well bred, so it should go well. Well, it means nothing.
Yeah.
It means nothing to you guys.
Yeah.
It means nothing to me as an opposing trainer. And now you get to the point where jockeys can come out and they can say, look, I expect Brenton to be there. I expect Hugh to be there. James McDonald would be about there. So if I can just be there, then that'd be perfect. And some people are new to the game say, oh, should he know all that? Are they all inside there colluding? And they're not. They're just doing their research.
They're doing
they?
their form. That's right.
So I reckon if those jockeys talk like that 20 years ago,
it's a different ball game.
Trainers would be tempted to walk in and say, hey, pull these blokes in. They're all talking in there. There shouldn't be going on.
And just on the form, you can. That's all right.
It's live.
No, it's not live.
Live but edited.
Hello.
Hi.
Good. And just on the form, what goes in? How's your stable plan a campaign, plan a race? Is it just yourself looking at it? Do you have some people that you use?
Yeah, like coming to a race day, like say tomorrow or last week, you had the 2 runners who ran the Cornello. Looking in that race, do you do the form yourself?
Yeah, so that race I did do a fair bit of the form. Like you investigate like David Van Dyke's horse had won in the country. He'd taken him to I think Port Macquarie before he took him to Scone.
Yep.
And you see the way the horse is ridden. The horse is going to be handy and drawn relatively well. But the difficulty there is just because a horse lobs first in one race, another horse lobs first in their race. They could be worlds apart, as you both know. I don't have to point that out, but one could be crawling the first bit, and the other one could be going lickety split. So
sure.
Those things are not our forte. We're trainers, We're busy training our horses from 3:45 in the morning. Then about 9 o'clock onwards, we've got 30 staff that one got paid an hour less last week, and the other one wants a pay rise, and the other one wants to ask for leave, and can we go away here, but we might be a bit short-staffed there.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the other one, we've got to look after their workers' compensation, and this is all part of running a business, We've got to staff work really hard, so I've got to give them my attention, and we've got to, like the whole office has got to keep doing that, so we've got to do that, and then we've got to collect our bills and invoice our clients and make sure the bills look right, and everything's accounted for. Now we've got to speak to our vets, and we've got to go through our vet work, so by the time we've done all this, right, when have we had the time to pick up the sportsman? The sportsman now on my desk on Tuesday afternoon, it still looks crisp.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I haven't turned a page yet.
Yeah.
But luckily I've got no runners tomorrow because I ran both those horses today.
Yeah.
But one of the things that does make it easier is having the videos online.
Yeah.
Now I used to talk to a form student and paid him. We would go through the form, so he would talk to me, and I do find not that I'd ever be distrusting, but I do find it interesting that now stewards are wondering whether those guys should be licensed. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, no, there's jockeys that are sort of teamed up with punters because they're in a similar boat as you. They feel like they're not across the form as well as a punter who can tell them about form and horses to track up. To me, that's just giving yourself the best chance to win a race.
So I always found it interesting. Like I talked to Peter, and he would always be very good. We would talk a race right through. But if I had a first starter, and no one really knows how we're going to ride the horse. There's no established pattern, which is another point I would be interested in your opinion on. If I want to be clever and I think I can outsmart the opposition that's a short price favourite, and we can come to a plan that might be superior to their plan. Well, if I'm speaking to a form student that's speaking to two other jockeys riding in the race and another trainer that's got another runner in the race, well, it sort of undermines my ability to
have the edge.
But at the same time, he would give really good information, and he would give me something that I didn't have the time to do myself. He would clock all my horses. He would tell me how my horses trialled. He would tell me how they raced. If it ran fourth, did it run well? If it won, did it run well? Because there's plenty of times where the horses have gone pretty ordinary, but they run top two. So if you can't be aware of that, and you just take it for granted that a horse that finishes in the top two raced well, then you probably don't give yourself the best opportunity to learn about how the horse is best
very difficult. The horse is going to run last and be good runners.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's quite tricky.
So on that, I got pulled aside by a punter there at Jack's Cafe at 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday morning. On the way to the track, and he's still convinced that a certain race at Canterbury that has been investigated, I don't think thoroughly yet, but I think there's been an inquiry already. That he's convinced it's a one-goer, He said, it looks bad for racing. Well, the horse that won by 5 lengths. So I say to him, the horse that won, it doesn't matter how my horse was ridden, that horse was going to win. And he said, that's not the point. But I had this argument with him about, he believes that I should have said to the stewards, well, I'm going to ride the horse. I'm going to ride the horse differently. The horse was still settled in the first 3, and the horse had only had 3 race starts in its career. And it had settled in the first 3 in 3 race starts. But he's convinced the horse should have led, But if you've watched our horses, we don't drive the ears of our horses every time they go around. So I made that point to him. That's about...
You're not a stable renowned for leading.
And so that's about like the style of his... Like if I was Guy Walter, you would know that the horse is just going to go back and it's going to be doing its best work rate. Nearly every time. And I made that point to him. Well, maybe we should do away with this rule that we have to declare our intentions, because it wouldn't be for the first time that if my horse did settle midfield or worse, all that would happen was I would be pulled in. And sometimes trainers have been fined, but I don't think they've been fined much in the past. I don't know, maybe you could research that.
Not too much.
Or I would tell you that the horse is going to be ridden more aggressively, but because the opportunity presented to my jockey to keep the favourite 3D, he decided not to roll forward and to stay where he was, to give myself the best advantage. And when I saw that happen, I, like the owners, they thought, if the favourite's deep, that it gives us an advantage. So we're happy about that. Or the third thing is, I blatantly get it wrong as a trainer, and I say the horse is going to be ridden with cover, and it goes straight to the front, pulls its head off, and you're better off without it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the problem about having to change the tactics rule there is that if you don't follow to the letter of the law, racing looks bad for it, and horses can do things and you can't predict it. So a lot of punters that we speak to would love the rule to just be done away with.
Another big problem with Sydney racing is A, because we've got the small field, but B, a lot of people know the speed map, they kind of jump and go to the speed map, and they just kind of go slow or plod into position and then they sprint home. And it makes for kind of uncompetitive racing. Well, you look at Hong Kong, where they go hell for it.
Yeah.
They let go.
They do.
So when we watch Hartnell race to the world, that was exciting. And I think that's what, like you said, it's something we need to bring back in the Sydney racing. Get that excitement.
So in Hong Kong, do they have to declare tactics?
Yeah, I think it's all out in the open. I'm sure it is, but
I've just never heard them declare tactics whenever I flick them on.
Yeah, we'll do some research, and that can be a story for us next week. Comparing Hong Kong tactics. Just before we finish up, you touched on jockeys and what jockeys suit horses. Or how should a punter look at one of your horses when it's ridden by jockey X compared to jockey Y?
Oh, look, I think that Blake Shin is a jockey that is as good as any jockey in the world at getting a horse to hit the ground running.
Yep.
And he's fantastic at having a horse give nearly everything it's got, nearly like just about on the bit, and he barely needs to pull the whip,
Yep.
So I think for a horse that's going to be aggressive, I would definitely like to have Blake on it.
Yep.
And I think Hugh Bowman is the sort of jockey that fits with nearly all our horses. I think he's a sort of go-to rider for us. I think he's ridden a lot of our good horses to great success, and I think he's got the right personality for it, and we get along very well. So we sort of see eye to eye, and he's prepared to tell me if he thinks that I've made a mistake, or he's prepared to give me a confident view if he trials a horse for me, or he even rides a horse that doesn't run up to scratch.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's also got the ability to say he's not sure.
Yep.
If he's literally not sure.
Yeah.
Because if a jockey rides 8 horses on a day, they can't get off and give 8 100% accurate assessments. It's not. If they were, they'd be running the stock market and they'd be smarter than the ASX.
True.
Yeah.
So I think that he can get off a horse and say, I can put something in. He say, look, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'll think about it, or I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah.
And recently, Glyn Schofield has been riding with the stable to great combination. Guys like Glyn Schofield and Tim Clark, they ride a bit of track work for me. And Adrian Lade at the Provincials, and Taylor Marshall's just coming back from overseas. But I like that they ride track work. I like that they get a feel for a horse, that they know a horse. They are forgiving of a horse that might be green if they've ridden the track work. They know it's got ability, but it's not 100% wound up, or hasn't got a perfect understanding of racing.
Has got the race sense.
Hasn't got that race sense, is the phrase I was looking for. So I think that sort of empathy from the jockey is really good, and so they ride our horses track work, and I think they're advantaged on our horses. And Glyn's very good as a quiet rider too. Glyn's got a great ability to get the timing right and to get a horse to switch off that isn't the easiest horse. And I think the way he rode Tempt Me Not, I said it to him, he's been able to get that horse to switch off whilst travelling 4th or 5th in the run, which is something nearly no other jockey's been able to do. Like, not even Hugh could get her to do that when she raced last prep, and that's taught that horse. I hope that's taught that horse a lot, because that means when we race the horse again and we draw soft again, we don't have to be 4 pairs back the fence, and we're in a terrible position for a horse that's got a brilliant finish. So, pretty lucky that we've got such good jockeys, and we can use these sort of, like the names I'm dropping, are able to
jump through them,
ring their managers and get them on horses, and there's so many horses going around. But there's also that element in Sydney racing that jockeys are now getting booked for races, they're not getting booked for horses.
Yeah.
So for me, who has maybe on average 4 to 6 starters a week, it's very hard when I've just identified a race. Now this is a race with a horse that I'd really like to win, and the jockey does that work with the horse or trials that horse. Then the jockey I want is booked for the race and may go without a ride, if that stable doesn't accept with every horse, or accepts with 4 and scratches 3,
it becomes tough.
it becomes very hard to get that horse. And I don't think that's going to be addressed, because I think that's probably too difficult an issue to address. But that's one of the reasons why Sydney racing is probably one of the hardest circuits there are. But equally, entertaining, exciting, and it's good to be a part of it. It's good to push yourself and challenge yourself to be, in the deep end.
Yeah, excellent.
I think we've done well.
I think we have.
All right.
And just one more for the punters. Is there anything young horse for the punters to look out for? Something you're exciting?
Well, so not a tip. You say if it was a tip,
Or
I'd say
horse
Burning
to follow.
Passion next Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh, there you go, Burning Passion
Burning
next
Passion
Wednesday,
next
huh?
Wednesday. Yeah.
But is there a horse you're a little bit excited about moving forward? Have you got any nice young ones or something like that?
Yeah, look, Sultry Feeling looks like she could be in for a good prep. I know she's 4, so you're probably looking for something a little bit more, a little bit less exposed.
That's
but
fine.
She's racing this Saturday. I'm pretty excited about her return.
Yeah.
I would really seriously love it if Ruling Dynasty ended up becoming, a really solid top line handicapper, handicap stayer. But of the unraced horses, I would be remiss not to say that there's a unraced filly there called Set the Limit that will be racing very shortly, and seems imbued with more than her fair share of ability.
There we go.
We haven't had the word imbued on our show Mark
That one was for you, Mark.
James, thanks for joining us on
Thanks for
Racing Extra.
Thanks a lot.